This is Brian Fishbach, and you're listening to the Matt Balaker podcast.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you once again for tuning in to the Matt Balaker podcast. It makes me feel warm, fuzzy, and overall very happy and contented. If you are an overachiever, as I know many of you listeners are, please encourage your friends to like, subscribe, and share. I'm really pumped up for today's guest. He is a music journalist, copywriter, Milwaukee Bucks fan, and ghostwriter. As a kid, his favorite book was The World Almanac. He's the editor-in-chief of Rock Music Life. He received a BA in political science from the University of Wisconsin, and he studied journalism at UCLA. Go Bruins. He enjoys writing about music as much as he enjoys listening to it, and from time to time, performing it. Please join me in welcoming Brian Fishbach to the show. How you doing, Brian?
Hey, thank you for having me, Matt. I'm really happy to be here.
I'm happy you're here, and you're joining us today from where?
I am joining you live from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I usually go back to my homeland a little bit before Thanksgiving and don't come back to LA till a little bit after.
That's why you're such a well-adjusted person. You kind of get the the Midwestern wholesomeness, and then they push you westward to LA where you lose all of that, and then you come back and the cycle repeats. So what was it like, growing up in Wisconsin? What are some of your earliest memories?
I mean, I remember, I can tell you this is one of my earliest memories. In fact, the earliest memory I have, I actually told who it was that the memory was of, that it was my earliest memory. And that was in Philadelphia. My dad was from Philadelphia. We were in Philadelphia and meeting Mark Summers and Harvey at a taping of Double Dare in Philadelphia when I was just before my third birthday. And I remember it. I remember all of it. And then years later in 2007, that was 88, and spring of 2007, I got to meet Mark Summers again at the University of Wisconsin, and told him, my earliest memory in life is meeting you in Philadelphia, and signed an autograph for me. We took a picture, and and I gave it to I told him that my dad, who was from Philly, wanted to be a game show host, and he signed it for him, and my dad kept it in his office for the rest of his life.
So Brian, essentially you peaked at 3 because as a youngin', and for listeners who don't know, Double Dare was essentially the precursor to The Floor is Lava. It was a Nickelodeon show, if I remember that correctly, and kids would just clamor to it. I mean, it was a huge hit. I mean, what were your favorite parts of the show, Brian?
I just thought it was great when they're looking for the flag inside the nose full of Nickelodeon green slime, and then the questions were crazy easy. That they would ask, just look up Double Dare, Mark Summers, Mark with a C, Summers with a U. Look it up on YouTube. It was a cool show, and it'll give you all the prizes will be throwbacks to the 80s. Just tell them what to win. A 1989 Dodge Caravan. So that was my earliest memory. So I guess you could say I've always been drawn to entertainment in some way. I remember when people presenting themselves in first grade, second grade, bringing in items that they from their life that they like and pictures of their family. I had pictures of me with Mark Summers.
He's my other dad, teacher.
Yeah. And then I thought I peaked at 3, and then I peaked at 5 again. Went to I grew up, I never saw Star Wars. I still haven't seen it. I'm 37, but I do share a birthday with George Lucas, and I know what happens at the end of Force Awakens. Didn't care, but I know. I grew up a huge Back to the Future fan, and at age 5, my father took me and my brothers to the Milwaukee Auto Show, and I sat in the DeLorean, hands on there. My brother turned the time circuit button off and on. Didn't work, but I mean, it was pretty cool. I still have that picture too.
Double Dare in DeLorean. I mean, all these 80s kids are just having wet dreams over your past, Brian. This is very, very impressive. And my younger brother a few years ago went to a Green Bay Packers game. He had a friend playing on the team, and he still talks.
What colors was he wearing?
Hopefully green and cheese.
Okay.
What color's cheese? Yeah, he was a big Packers fan, at least for that day. But he was kind of a fly-by-nighter. He went in there, had some fun. What is it like to those people who live it day in and day out, Brian?
Well, I haven't lived in Wisconsin in about, over 15 years. Yeah, 15 years it's been since I lived in Wisconsin. So the whole Brett Favre leaving and comeback drama, I was in DC just not stewing about it in the way others would. But Lambeau Field is a very content place to watch a game. They're not necessarily loud and obnoxious. Of course there's the exceptions. Depending on who it is that's on the field, if someone's disrespected Green Bay, be loud. But it's a very content place to watch the games. People are really content to be there. I grew up going to more preseason games than anything else because I was, really fortunate before the days of StubHub and stuff. We had tickets to 3 games a year, and was really fortunate that I was able to go to that, especially during the real prime time. And actually, I was at Lambeau not last Thursday, but last Saturday. I was there at an event for a former player.
Very nice. And so you experienced Lambeau Field, but you're also a proud Badger. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I've heard rumors that there's a fifth quarter where win or lose, the crowd stays and plays drinking games. What's the truth of it?
Drinking games, I think drinking games happen afterwards. It is a very proudly drunk city. And as someone that
it's the contentment. Yeah.
Okay. I don't drink at all. I hate the taste, but I did it just because it was it's just the thing to do.
The cool kids were doing it. Yeah.
Gotta ask, by the way, can I use letters that start with S and end with T? And can I use words that start with F and end with K? Yeah. So just people get fucked up before the games. I didn't even understand the idea of a flask until I got to the games where it's okay, so you get drunk before the games and you drink this warm shit that could get you thrown out and arrested during the game to keep that going. Okay. Very, very proud drunks. But yeah, the fifth quarter is the marching band will play win or lose. The marching band at the home games and away games. If the marching band's invited, they play they play a bunch of different songs. I know that their repertoire of music has changed since Mike LaCrone, the longtime marching band director, left about 3-4 years ago, something like that. And he was great. But I'll tell you this, though, I did go to quite a few USC games in the last few years, and I'm not a Trojans fan, but I love going to the Coliseum. I think about Super Bowl I, the 2 different Olympics. Think of Rayford Johnson lighting the torch back in '84. I wasn't around then, but I love their marching band. Now, I know that the Wisconsin, I'm going to get myself in a lot of trouble. Wisconsin marching band's in great shape. They do the, and this is a video podcast, they do the stop at the top. So they're not just walking or marching, but they do the stop at the top.
These are high knees action for people.
Yeah.
Listening.
So all of any of your friends that are in the marching band, they have massive calves. But the song selection, I loved USC song selection because they would play. My favorite band's The Offspring. They'd play The Kids Aren't All Right. They'd play You're Gonna Go Far, Kid. They'd play California Love. They even play Crawling in the Dark by Hoobastank.
Wow.
So I take that over Hey Baby, Won't You Be My Girl any day.
So what are your favorite Offspring songs?
I got a lot. Self-esteem, I think, is just their magnum. Is their best.
I was listening to She's Got Issues this past.
That's a great one too.
And I was wondering if it were released today, Brian, how do you think it would be received?
Probably lyrically, you mean?
Yeah.
who knows? I mean, look the
It seems like
all
there'd
the
be
things,
pushback. That's my
but all the
take.
things that the singers, the singer of the song is, or the writer of the lyrics is complaining about and saying. Look, those are all things that existed long before that band formed.
You
And
mean
it's
teen
people.
angst and frustration didn't just come to fruition in 1996?
No, it just got documented better.
Oh, okay.
And then the iPhone happened, and the iPhone got video and it got even better. And Samsung raised the ante, and now we just have proof of just how raw this. We'll just call it raw, not better or worse. How raw this world is.
Very
But
diplomatic of you, Brian.
no, but they're good. I mean, they're a good live show. They're a lot of fun. I think I've seen them 10 times now.
Wow.
I think they're currently the winner.
For the winner of the Brian Fishbach, seen the most times.
Yep.
Well, we're breaking news on the Matt Balaker podcast. This is exciting. So you mentioned, Brian, that you are a recovering nasty sports fan.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
I used to get real riled up about these things.
How
about
so?
Just all of it. I mean, just look on Twitter. I mean, I wasn't a tweeter about, in like 2007, 2008 or whatever, but I would just get so angry about things. And then, early 2011, I reached sports nirvana. The Packers win the Super Bowl, Badgers go to the Rose Bowl. I didn't give a fuck that the Badgers lost in front of me.
Yeah.
I honestly didn't care. I was at the Rose Bowl with my brothers, and we hadn't been there in 11 years. It was my first time going to a game, going to a Rose Bowl game. I had been to a UCLA game in 2008, but I was just happy. I'm like, look, we're here. We made it. It's about time. And I was like, this isn't going to ruin anything for me. I mean, it's just one less shirt that I have to buy that says champions. Yeah, I mean, it was, in 2000, early 2008, things like, Favre and Donald Driver were supposed to end the winning streak of the Patriots in the Super Bowl. That one really hurt when they lost at home. That was really an ugly day. It was Brett Favre's last game as a Packer, and that would have been a really great way to go out. I mean, I've watched the video. I don't watch it anymore. I'm stewed about it, but like on YouTube, there were videos of I remember there was a video of the end of the Star Spangled Banner and the flyover. They turned on it was at night. The plane turns on the afterburner, so you see this like orange blue fire light up, and you could just feel in the crowd like, this is it, gonna happen. And then it didn't, and it was just like, oh man, this hurts. And that was pretty ugly. And then again, in 2021, it happened again.
So it sounds like the path to recovery, Brian, is just having your teams win. You got the Super Bowl from the Packers, then an NBA championship for the Milwaukee Bucks. Like,
if your teams are garbage for long swaths of time, I'm not talking about the Packers, but the teams are lousy, like the Bucks and the Brewers for most of my life. And your team doesn't move to another city, consider yourself fortunate. It's besides the economics of it, completely aside from, we're talking from the emotional standpoint of your team has left your town. That's got to be awful. I haven't had to suffer through that, but in the 90s, the Brewers and the Bucks were garbage. They were awful teams. We're watching teams like the Indians, the Yankees, the Braves just kicking ass. You had the Spurs, the Magic. The Magic didn't win the title, but the Rockets, the Bulls 6 times. And then there's the Bucks, and they're just shit. And but the Bucks and Brewers were really fortunate that each of the team, like the 2 professional teams here in Milwaukee, each team had an owner that were really good people. Now, a lot of people disagree with me, but regardless of how you feel about Bud Selig in Milwaukee, we love him because he kept baseball in Milwaukee. He very easily could have sold the team, made billions of dollars, and sold the team. I mean, I think regard. I
Yeah,
don't know how
he could
much
have been the
sold
real life owner of Major League.
Yeah, he could have been.
He could have
Rachel,
been
yeah.
that villain, yeah, but he
Yeah,
wasn't.
yeah. And they filmed that movie in Milwaukee, actually. So we love in Milwaukee, we love Major League. Um, we're big Major League fans because it was filmed here in Milwaukee. And when it comes to movies that were filmed in Wisconsin, there isn't a whole lot of them.
That's a pretty short list, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking Major League. I mean, it was filmed at my high school, the locker room scenes. They filmed at old Milwaukee County Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
So we turn it on, and it's got our buddy Bob Uecker as Harry Doyle,
Mr. Baseball himself.
Yeah, and I'll send you something. I mean, if, it's and I could send it to you so you could watch it if you want while we do this podcast or not. But right before Game 7 of the 2018 NLCS live from Milwaukee, I couldn't sit still, and so I made a parody, but I took the audio from the last game, from the final game, game 163 in Major League against the Indians versus Yankees, and I laid the audio over a Brewers montage of all the same thing. I could describe it or I could show it to you, and it felt good to see.
I'll tell you what, send it and we'll put a link to it in the show description so people can see it in its entirety.
Yeah, and the thing with the song that plays over that final game too is that I haven't found a track from it. I mean, there's tracks from all over the soundtrack, but I have not found that final game music, that real tense final game music. And you just read the comments of the people on YouTube, like, this is what this is it, win or go home type game. This is what it feels like. And so a couple of weeks ago, I was just like, fuck it. I need to put this together myself. I'm a guitarist. I play music. I write about it. I enjoy it. And I made a kind of a crude cover of the James Newton Howard final game theme to Major League. Huge nerd
with some ambition and talent, and one kind of, I would say, non rock and roll thing you did was working on Capitol Hill, or maybe it is rock and roll, but I'm curious, how did that whole gig happen, Brian?
I think all these things are kind of related. I may eat these words in a couple of years, who knows? But I couldn't starve away in a. I'm not starve away. I won't be starving, but working at a place that didn't have some sort of potential for, positive front page pizzazz, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's entertainment or politics, I wanted to be at the center of where that is.
Well, obviously you're at the center of where it is in terms of podcasting. You're on the Matt Balaker podcast. So that I want to know, what was it like working on Capitol Hill, and what specifically did you do there, Brian?
Partisan. I mean, it was pretty partisan. I mean, it got much worse after I'm not saying that I was the glue that held it together.
I mean, we're not saying you're not the glue, but go ahead, please.
I think what happened is these personality types, and remember that there is a certain personality type that it takes to get elected to statewide office, or get elected by a congressional district.
I think narcissist is the personality type, but
there's it's much easier to be a narcissist than be someone that has some of those qualities, but really really cares and has genuine conviction about what it is that they're doing and people believing in them. That's a lot harder to do. But once those people, the elected officials, got a hold of Twitter and social media, things got ugly. Things got really ugly, and who knows where it's going to go. But but working there, I'm glad I did. I'm glad I did. I saw some really interesting things. I met some really great friends that I still.
Yeah. Well, what are some of the interesting things you saw or something that surprised you?
I mean, just, I got to go to 2 inaugurations for Barack Obama. Those were pretty incredible, just to be there. And what a lot of people don't know is that, at the first inauguration of Obama, there's a lot of things, but at the first inauguration of Obama, people that had what are called the purple tickets. So they were given to them by congressional offices.
It wasn't Willy Wonka. You get a purple.
No, it
those
wasn't.
Are golden tickets. Sorry, I'm confusing my tickets.
No, the golden tickets. I think those were the ones that had seats. So that's where and there's like a panoramic photo that a friend of mine that was one of the official photographers of the Senate took, and it's like a billion pixels, and you like zoom in, and you could you see, okay, there's Spielberg, there's Denzel, there's all these different like celebrities and stuff. You'd see, look right into their faces.
Jeffrey Epstein.
I hope not. I hope not. Yeah, he sucked. He was awful. But I remember like at the purple, like there was a thing called, you look up like the Purple Tunnel of Doom is what it was called. And all these people, what it was is all these people that had tickets to inauguration in 2009. Mm-hmm. They lined up they just started lining up in a tunnel underneath the National Mall, the I-95 or whatever tunnel. And I walked there by myself and happened to run into friends. But had I like followed people there, and they were just like, okay, well, it's noon now, so Obama's president by law. We missed there are people that came from all over the world for it. And I had a great day that day. But I mean, just interesting things. I mean, you see where a lot of compromise does happen or did happen behind the scenes, and
I know it's not in front of the camera usually. Where does the compromise take place, Brian?
Making friends this isn't a difficult question, or it shouldn't be a difficult question, but if you're talking with any person that's in politics, that's in elected office, the question as an interviewer should always ask, who's your best friend on the other side of the aisle? Mm-hmm. And if they don't have an answer for that, they're not going to get much done. I've seen people give some horseshit answers where they respect somebody or something they did, but you got to if you don't have friends on the other side, you're not getting anything done. Mm-hmm. But you're gonna make a lot of noise and sell a lot of books. Right.
Get a lot of donations if you vilify the other side.
Yeah, and and as time goes on, as people have been around for more years, I mean, the thing to also ask them is what legislation did you author that you got into law? Because if they're not doing that, it's just it could be posture. I mean, there's other stuff that happens behind the scenes, but there was a point where the money wasn't good at all, and I was kind of bored with the work, and I always wanted to, entertainment's where I wanted to be. I mean, when you said your favorite things on Capitol Hill, the first thing I thought of was there was a time a friend of mine was a photographer. He was like, oh yeah, Annie Lennox and Elton John are going to be at the Foreign Affairs Committee. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm taking lunch right now. I'll it's 10:30 in the morning. I don't care. I'm going. And yeah, I got a picture with Elton John.
Elton John and Anna. Wow. Two icons. Yeah. That's
not Annie Lennox. I didn't get a picture with her, but
okay.
Yeah, I got a great
up there with the Double Dare. Is it Mark Sumner?
Mark Summers. Yeah.
Mark Summers. Yeah.
But yeah, just an oogler of entertainment. As a creative person and someone that just loves the arts. And craves attention.
You're creative, and you're also a journalist, which I think, it makes sense. It's not the most obvious combination, but what motivated you to leave kind of the DC Beltway life and pursue a more rock and roll type of journalism?
Yeah, it run its course, and it's I do it now or never. The track would have been going to law school, and probably going to a shitty law school. I mean, I don't know. The standardized tests were tough. I mean, look, I could do my best. My cousin Vinny, I can investigate and everything like that. But the LSAT, there's a good reason it keeps people out of law. Some people out of law school or other places, and I had no interest. I really there was a guy who was I'm gonna name his name, but he was a technology maven with the I think with the Obama campaign, and I was at someone's birthday party, and I was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna go to law school or something. And he was like, what kind of law do you like the most? And I go, None.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
you like
what
anarchy.
part of the law do you like? And I'm just like, nope. I'm just like, I'm not doing this. And then someone said something about like a friend had like an internship at the Onion, and I was like, fuck, I should be doing that. And it was kind of hard to get a job at the Onion, and
Yeah,
so I started.
You're at 2 inaugurations, and you're like, I really want to work at the Onion. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. And what did I do? Someone said something about someone we knew was like interning at the Onion. I'm like, I should try doing that. I mean, I can't intern there, but I don't know. I should. Anyway, so it was hard to get a job there. So I started a satire website. Originally, I called it Doghouse Daily, and then I had this wild idea to change it to the Comedy News, just because the domain was available. You know, when you start getting a domain, purchase happy with domains, and it's still up. I took down some of the articles just because some things just like just stupid. But if you go to thecomedynews.com, the satire site's still up there. But the articles that did the best that I wrote, these Onion style articles, the ones that did the best were about sports. They'd end up on like message boards and shit.
I think that's where we connected. I think it was through that comedy website, years ago. So that it's bringing people together.
Yeah. I mean, the Onion's great. Founded in Madison, Wisconsin. So, growing up, we always had paper copies of it, just everywhere. In Madison, in college, we had it everywhere. And even, some points in DC, they still had paper copies. The Onion is the world's finest news source. Their masthead says.
I don't argue with that one bit. And you created Rock Music Life, Brian. What motivated you to do that?
Well, I had all these interviews that I had conducted with people, submitted articles to various places, but I still had, even in a 1,000 word article, there's still a lot of information left on the table. Especially in like a 30-minute conversation you have, or even like a 20-minute conversation. There's just so much that's left. And so, it was a place where I'd put, some of the not outtakes, but just the things that didn't make the final cut for other publications. I'd turn them into something on this website. And originally it was more rock music focused. It was interviewing, guys from Bad Religion, Eve 6, The Offspring, Sum 41. I interviewed all these different people, and I was putting the excerpts there, doing concert reviews, putting them there. And then, the times changed. It was like, I have interests in other things, and it's not that, it wasn't that it was getting boring or anything, because every rock star's life is going to be different. You just got to ask the right questions. I started writing about other stuff. So, I got a lot, and kind of doing a soft launch of it, but I got a lot of things that it's just a matter, like things that I've already written. It's just a matter of kind of putting up these greatest hits, backdating them, and there's a lot more that's coming in the coming days. So check it out this week. And then there's going to be, and one of the things that we're doing is that we have a section called Learn 10 Lessons, where we interview various people from all kinds of trades, and we ask them, what are 10 lessons that people don't know about, like, let's say, and we're not just talking like, someone that's at the top of the food chain, at some major company or something like that. Let's say you go to, you're getting your car fixed, you have AAA come, or as my grandpa would call it, the 3As. The 3As come to fix your car. You ask them, like, what are things that people do with their cars that they just don't realize that they're doing, that messes up your car, and they'll give you a lot of different answers. And then the other, I won't give them all away, but the last one that I had for this interview I did with this guy that was just, but he was someone that came from AAA to fix my car, was that if you call AAA and someone comes to tow your car and you're in a parking lot or parking garage or something, they have to pay to get in themselves. Mm-hmm. So, if you want some karma points or want to ensure that someone takes good care of your car, give them a couple bucks to pay for that parking, because they had to pay for themselves. These aren't like huge. These aren't huge life lessons. Some of them are, but it's just little things, or like 10 10 lessons on finding the right therapist. Because some people don't know what to do and they never see one. And I think that's an important thing everyone should do. And these are the kind of articles that we have up there, not just the 10 lessons, but we also have, concert reviews, news about music, television, sports, politics, or just facts. You find yourself on Wikipedia just drooling over facts like I've been doing for my whole life. And it wasn't Wikipedia, it was the Almanac.
Sure.
Might as well turn some of these findings into a narrative.
Yeah. Well, Brian, we want to take a page out of your own book, and you don't have to give us 10 lessons, but how about maybe 1 or 2 lessons, whether it's how to have a career in journalism, or you're also pretty adept at time management. Like how can people manage their time better, or maybe music? Like what are some lessons that you want to impart to our audience?
When it comes to time, you do have to say yes to a lot of things to get to where you want to go to. And you're going to have to turn down a lot of fun things. There's as an example, somebody wrote to me and they're only available during, a particular, like a football game or something I want to watch. And it's like, all right, do I want to watch the Packers or Jets, or do I want to, dick around trying to figure out the right time? But it's, so you got to say yes to a lot of things, and really do have to keep your mind on the prize. I know some people can get really stressed by having lots of crazy things on the walls. I think for me, it's important to, like, if we were at my place in Los Angeles, you would see it just covered in lots of things that I love. So, you're not, so you don't forget what it is that makes you happy in any given moment. Like, you look up and you're like, oh, look, there's a picture of, Homer Simpson in a Packers shirt wearing a cheese head. These things make me happy.
That should make anyone happy. Well,
yeah, but it's time management. But it's really, but when it gets, remembering why you're there, your motivation of why it is that you're doing what it is you're doing, and then also training people to respect your time. Like, for me, I try to do most of the interviews that I do with people. I try to do them on Monday and Tuesday. That way I could just kind of stack them all there. If someone sent me at the last second or something before the interview, I can watch the documentary, the movie, or read the book in the days leading up to it over the weekend if I want to. Then that way you have, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to really just focus and write.
That's smart. You kind of compartmentalize your work week. In terms of your career, Brian, what have you done that you're most proud of to date?
Most proud of? I'd say, really, like, what I've been doing at the Jewish Journal of Los Angeles it's been a real dream. It's been really great. Been with them for about a year and a half. Jewish Journal of Los Angeles. I interviewed some incredible people, written some really fun and sometimes really dark, scary, sad type articles, but it's been really great. I'd also, that's been really also someone that's pivoted from one career to another. This is it's really exciting. It really is. It's a great community newspaper with a very large following, over 1 million unique visitors each month to their website. And it's still in print, it's in physical print.
Wonderful.
And we just did a whole event last week, celebrate a couple of things, and just talking about how, what did the editor say? He said, this is not exactly what he said, but he said having, a Jewish community newspaper, it's like having another Shabbat table to attend, where it's a gathering of so much from the community. And so I love that. And then also, I gotta, also credit a lot that I've learned about really, I'm not going to call it perfectionism, but really really doing best to figure out the right word, the right way to present. I worked with author Neil Strauss for a couple of years. And he was a ghostwriter, helped him with his memoir, The Truth. We did the Kevin Hart memoir. It's called I Can't Make This Up, Life Lessons. Like, great book to check out. It was it's great. I mean, Kevin's hilarious but really, introspective. He's a real thinker, and just watching, not just watching, but being a part of the ghostwriting process, learned so much working with Neil. And then we also did, I also have to credit the work that I did with Neil and Gabby Reese, the volleyball player.
Mm-hmm.
We had a podcast called The Truth Barrel. I don't think that the episodes are available anymore, but it was on the PodcastOne Network, and we had just so many amazing interviews. And they would interview people in a 220-degree barrel sauna at Gabby's house. Yeah, so it was great. And
very short interviews.
Yeah. No, I mean, these would last hours. I mean, and they would, wow. Neil and Gabby, sometimes they would like sit in there they would do like 4 or 5 interviews, and they'd be in there just like all day, and they're just made of Kevlar, and can handle it. But and people ask, how does the equipment handle it? It's like, actually really well, but where the equipment doesn't handle it, it was bald dudes. Neil's bald, Terrell Owens bald, a couple other people, other bald folks that would go in there, and the headsets, just the way that the sweat would pool and just blow out the mics, the microphones would happen. But that was a really fun show. And then we did a show that I wasn't a part of the second season, but I was a part of the first season, called To Live and Die in LA. It was the
Webby Award-winning true crime podcast.
Yeah. I mean, just in that was wild. I mean, it really, really was. And people love true crime. They're really, really into it, and it did very well. And people ask, do I want to start a podcast? I'm like, I'm sure I'd love to, but right now is not the time, but I would gladly go on other people's.
Well, we'd love to have you back whenever you want, Brian. Where can people learn more about you, what you're doing, other projects you're up to?
Sure. I mean, you could follow me on a couple places. On Instagram, follow me at Brian, BRIAN F, as in Foxtrot, F yeah, YEAH. Brian F yeah on Instagram. Twitter, I'm Brian Fishbach, BRIAN FISHBACH. Go to brianfishbach.com, but also make sure you check out rockmusiclife.com. It's spelled the way that it sounds, Rock Music Life. Follow us on the 4 majors of social media. And if you want to see some really cool interviews with musicians, athletes, filmmakers, just interesting people, or just wild facts that I've just learned, that's what me and my brothers and my family, we're all into that, so it's and the Rock Music Life, it's a dream project. And there's another thing that's also coming up, but I can't speak about it just yet, but it has to do with
you tease. Go ahead.
I know, it has to do with the writing world. It's a ghostwriting project, and I first heard of you because you wrote the Greg Giraldo book, and I loved Greg Giraldo. I saw him twice. Loved Greg Giraldo. Loved the book. I read it so fast, and I'm not exactly a fast reader. I loved the Greg Giraldo book, and if we were at my apartment in Los Angeles, I'd show you the framed. Did I send you a picture of the framed autograph and photo I have with Greg?
I think you might have a while back.
Okay, yeah. And of all things that I've collected over the years, that's like the only one that I have because framing's expensive.
It is.
To do it right. But I love the book, and I miss Greg Giraldo having him in the world, but. But he also was an inspiration because he was like, look, he's this guy that has a law degree that's just like, I'm not doing this scat and arts working at a law firm. I'm not hell with this.
It shows you can have a high LSAT score and not be a good lawyer. So it's not a 1-to-1 correlation.
Or just not be a lawyer, like
that too.
Yeah. He just didn't want to. Or I don't remember if he was a good or bad lawyer. I just remember he defended Jeff Ross or something.
He wasn't a lawyer very long, so I don't know how good you can be if you practice for
Yeah, I think it was on
under 24 months.
What was on Root of All Evil? Andy Daly said something like, "That's as absurd as thinking that my counterpart over here can win the 200-meter try to act like he wore a suit before." That's a show where I bought the DVDs years ago because I was like, there's no way that Comedy Central is gonna put bandwidth into streaming this show. And so I have all those episodes. And
you had the foresight, like, this isn't long for the world. I'm going to buy my DVDs now. Exactly. I wish I could have done that with Tough Crowd. Alas,
there's some lousy recordings of Tough Crowd on YouTube. I mean, they're grainy, but they're there. So,
they're grainy, but they're there.
They're grainy, but they're there. That's the Tough Crowd with Colin Quinn anthology book title.
Well, Brian, you're not grainy. You're clear and present in here, and we're grateful for it. Please come back again, and thank you for joining us on the Matt Balaker podcast. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Matt Balaker podcast. To learn more, please check out mattbalaker.com and encourage your friends to like, subscribe, and share. Really appreciate it.